All right, it's bad enough the IRS is targeting conservative political groups. Now the agency accused of seizing millions of your private medical records as well. Fox News legal analyst Peter Johnson Jr. has been doing the research. Peter, how do they meld this together?
There's a lawsuit out in San Diego in the federal court by which a healthcare company says the IRS came in and seized about 60 million medical records of 10 million patients. And let's look at what the medical records at risk are. 10 million Americans, potentially all California state judges, celebrities and athletes, prominent executives. That's 1 in 25 of adult American citizens. The lawsuit also alleges all kinds of bad behavior by the IRS agents once they showed up at this healthcare facility that was marked with HIPAA signs, meaning that it is protected and privileged health information. They threatened, according to the lawsuit, to rip out the computer servers if the information was not turned over. And then while they were there, they happened to call out for pizza and Coca-Cola and watch the NCAA tournament on the media system at this healthcare facility. So in the wake of Obamacare, and we now know IRS agents are going to fan out across America to enforce Obamacare, to see this lawsuit that says 15 IRS agents, allegedly rogue agents, went on a rampage, took health records of 10 million people, and now won't turn them back. And so this healthcare company, on behalf of these people, is saying, give us the records back, destroy us, and pay us compensation for what's gone on.
Yeah, and just think about the control the IRS will have over our health care very shortly or currently as we hire thousands
That's
more.
the devastating issue that we go forward. How much and how often are we going to have to turn to courts to enforce our right of privacy, to enforce confidentiality in terms of health records, in terms of tax records, and our health records, the new financial records for the IRS?
Right, Peter.
16,000 new IRS agents whose the only job will be policing the health care law and the 49 financial regulations and rules over which it will have direct control. But has the IRS already jumped the gun? The Daily Caller, among others, now reporting lawsuits already being filed over the agency improperly seizing medical records of 10 million Americans. Celia, that's a lot of Americans.
It's devastating, but I'm not surprised because this past week the IRS has made it very obvious that they're operating under an underlying political agenda, and they're willing to violate the Constitution to do so. First with the First Amendment and targeting conservative and religious groups, now with the Fourth Amendment with unlawfully seizing the medical records of these innocent Americans.
But we don't know their political,
to
be fair, we don't know their political persuasion or whether this was, and maybe here you can help me, Alexander, whether this was just part of what their eventual job will be, and they're sort of jumping the gun. What do you make of it?
This was clearly a mistake. 15 agents went in to seize documents in a related tax lawsuit and took medical record boxes. These 15 agents were clearly, not the best and the brightest, should not
well, doesn't that give you pause, Alexandra?
IRS.
Doesn't that give you pause when they're going to have much more control? This is just a preview to coming attractions with the backdrop of targeting these conservative groups. Wouldn't it give you pause?
I disagree, Neil. I think that these were some low-level bureaucrats who made a terrible mistake.
They've got millions of records, Alexander. They've got millions of records.
Always low-level.
Exactly, it's always low level.
What really concerns me, what really concerns me here is more about the broad sweeping lawsuit and what implications that has. But look, there are new heads in charge of the IRS. Several of them served under George Bush as well as under the Obama administration, and I'm sure that they're going to get their house in order.
Well, I guess I'm just saying go slow until you do, Phil. And I'm not casting political aspersions because she's right. A lot of these are, former Bush appointees, and also I'm not saying I don't care whose fault it is, just that the IRS obviously isn't up to speed when it's making a mistake of this magnitude. Because forget about targeting conservative groups. If you're prematurely jumping on millions of folks' tax records when you shouldn't be, and I don't care what their political persuasion is, you shouldn't be doing it, and they're already doing it, and this is ahead of them being granted far more sweeping, substantial powers.
Yeah, the fundamental problem here is that there's far too much government power, and in particular far too much bureaucratic power being handed over to these agencies like the IRS. And there are always going to be dozens or hundreds of agents or low-level bureaucrats or whatever you want to call them who are going to act badly and do bad things. And instead of making excuses after the fact or litigating it, we should limit government power on the front end. And that's why I think we've got to do something about this healthcare law before they have this huge interagency database where they're going to have regular access to this, and any rogue agent's going to be able to go in and get all kinds of health information and other information because it's going to be stored in a government database that they have access to. And so the potential for these types of problems becomes much greater when you have more government power. And I think that's why today's healthcare repeal vote was so important, and why this is going to continue to be a major debate kind of as this thing gets rolled out going into the fall with open enrollment coming.
Yeah, but I tell you, see, my own view on the repeal thing is it doesn't go further than the House. It's done. We're stuck with this turkey. Just my own disparaging personal view
well,
of it.
Neil, I think
I agree.
Well, no, I know, guys, but here's what I want to get at is that do these issues that have popped up regarding the IRS prompt the healthcare rollout to slow down dramatically?
I think that Democrats and Republicans both need to be outraged about this and demand a full investigation into the IRS before they put their hands into the Obamacare implementation come 2014. Because how can we trust the IRS right now when they are breaking the law left and right? We can't, and there needs to be a full-fledged investigation into the IRS before they are granted even more power into our lives and into our medical business.
You know, Alexander, I heard what you were saying at the outset, and I agree with you in this respect that, you know, you have some rogue agents involved here that just did something nutty, stupid, or even just inept. But I have a theory when you have a contract, I don't know if you have a contract at your house, that 10% of that is padded or waste or whatever estimate they're giving you. It's just thievery. Not all contractors, mind you, but actually all contractors. So I'm beginning to wonder the huge sums we're talking about for the IRS, just the small amount of wiggle room for mistake, abuse, stupidity is stupendous here, worrisome here. And that's why I say go slow here. What do you say?
Well, look, again, I think that we're talking about two isolated incidents. You know, when the IRS under George Bush was investigating
these are two big isolated incidents,
no one called for hearings.
These are two big isolated incidents.
Do you fire the top guy for an isolated incident?
Again, we're talking about select agents in one office in Cincinnati who investigated conservative groups, and 15 agents who, in a moment of incompetence, surely went in and
but we don't know any of that. We don't know whether it's just rogue agents.
Which is why there needs to be an investigation. There needs to be an investigation so we can find these answers out.
I think
and Neil, I would point out that we're already seeing
what conservatives are doing is using this as an excuse to try to
we're already seeing a significant abuse of power in the rollout of the health care law.
Phil, here's what I want. If you have problems, you examine the problems before you give any more responsibility to the entity creating the problems. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and even with respect to the rollout of the healthcare law, we've got a highly questionable rule forcing employer penalties to apply in states that lawfully opted out. Right. That's being litigated right now, and that came from the same brain trust that brought us these politically motivated investigations.
We'll see, guys.
So I think we're already seeing abuse.
Let's hope it's limited, but boy, I'm not encouraged by what I've seen. But I do appreciate all of you joining me.